Documents revealed two US soldiers overheard plot to kill JFK and were committed after reporting it. Despite receiving little attention in the mass media, you do surprise me again. The November 2017 and April 2018 release of more than 35,000 and 18,000 documents by the Trump administration relating to the assassination of former President Kennedy, which has been withheld from the public for more than 50 years, sheds new light on the president's murder, which it of course was, and not by Lee Harvey Oswald either, and to the two soldiers who attempted to stop it. While the mainstream media did cursorily cover the two releases, virtually none of the coverage was aimed at the most damning revelations, which included the fact that two US soldiers in separate locations uncovered cryptographic messages indicating that President Kennedy was going to be assassinated prior to his murder in Dallas. Ominously, both of these soldiers were subsequently institutionalized after attempting to get the information they had uncovered to the authorities. The first case involves an Army codebreaker named Eugene V. Dinkin. US Army Private First Class Eugene Dinkin served in Metz, France, in the 599th Ordnance Group and worked in the cryptography section of his unit. His duties at Metz reportedly included deciphering cable traffic from the European commands, NATO, etc. A report by Citizens for Truth about the Kennedy assassination explained. On September, it should say actually here in September, but in September 1963, Dinkin noticed material in the Army newspaper, Stars and Stripes, and other print publications that was negative towards the president and his policies and implied that he was in a weak position as president in dealing with the Russians. Here we go. The examples that he found became more negative, the suggestion being that if he were removed as president, it would be a good thing. By mid-October, Dinkin had found enough information, some of it subliminal, that he was convinced that a plot was in the works, one driven by some high-ranking members of the military, some right-wing economic groups, and with support from some national media outlets. Well, basically, all of the above. I repeat myself, they're basically controlled by the same force. Dinkin's studies forced him to conclude that the plot would happen around November 28, 1963, and that the assassination would be blamed on a communist or a Negro. He then sent a registered letter to Attorney General Robert Kennedy. When he got no reply, he decided on other options. Dinkin gathered his evidentiary material in late October 1963, which included psychological sets he had uncovered that he believed were being used to induce a specific state of mind into citizens' consciousness regarding President Kennedy in the run-up to his assassination, and he went to the US Embassy in Luxembourg in an effort to meet with Mr. Cunningham, the chargé d'affaires. And what we're looking at here, of course, is a classic example of the way the public is prepared for certain events, and how anyone who comes across information to expose those events before they happen and afterwards end up facing consequences, which is where this story is leading. Despite Dinkin informing Cunningham by phone that he had important information about a plot to assassinate Kennedy, Cunningham refused to meet with him or look at the evidence data. And upon returning to Metz, his superiors informed him that he was scheduled to undergo a psychological evaluation on November the 5th, 1963. Dinkin then decided he had to leave his unit and go to Geneva, Switzerland in an attempt to get this information to someone that could potentially assist in thwarting the assassination attempt. Despite unsuccessfully attempting to speak to the editor of the newspaper, Geneva Diplomat, and a Newsweek reporter who refused to listen to the information, Dinkin was able to speak to the secretary of Time Life, who was located in Zurich. The documents reveal that on November the 6th, 1963, Dinkin went to the press room of the United Nations office in Geneva, where he informed reporters about the assassination plot. Reporter Alex de Fontaine, a freelancer for Time Life and Radio Canada, later told authorities that he and a female reporter both recalled Dinkin discussing the evidence he had uncovered regarding an assassination plot. In fact, the information from Dinkin actually prompted de Fontaine to file the story on November 26, 1963. So what this story is saying is that this guy and another had the opinion, having looked at the, if you like, information traffic, that there was going to be this plot. But then what happened is that they were basically sectioned. Dinkin was placed in detention upon his return on November the 8th and held until November the 13th, when he was taken to a hospital in Germany for a psychological evaluation and was subsequently transferred to Walter Reed Naval Hospital, where he was held for months until he was discharged. And what happens in those places is their minds are so manipulated, they come out thinking something different to what they were when they did when they went in. So while Dinkin was being detained, a man who claimed to be from the Department of Defense visited him and asked him for the data he had collected regarding the assassination plot. Dinkin reportedly told the man where the papers were located. Upon his release, he realized that all of his data had been collected had been taken. In an interview with FBI agents, he said he believed that there had been a plot perpetuated by a military group and abetted by newspaper personnel working with the group that plotted to assassinate President Kennedy. In a completely separate case, two newly released CIA documents revealed that prior to November 1963, Air Force Sergeant David Christensen, who was stationed in Scotland, intercepted communications that an assassination attempt would be made on President Kennedy. The documents revealed that Christensen, while stationed at a CIA listening post at an RAF base, yes, they do exist, reportedly intercepted communications about a plot to assassinate Kennedy, but few other substantive details surrounding exactly what he heard are available. After hearing something he clearly was not intended to hear, and trying to get it sent to the National Security Agency, Christensen, like Dinkin, was reportedly committed to a mental institution. And the fact that the cases of these two separate US servicemen were withheld for over 50 years after the assassination clearly leads one to believe that this information was withheld for a reason. If these were two cranks, then why would these reports only be servicing after 50 years? A very, very relevant question. But of course, I've been to Dealey Plaza in Dallas, where the Kennedy assassination happened. And what hits you when you go there is actually how small it is. Television pictures make it seem much bigger than it really is. And when you go to the spot where Kennedy was shot, and you look back at the book depository where Lee Harvey Oswald was supposed to have shot him from, and you realize from the Zapruder film taken by a man called Abraham Zapruder, who was a spectator taking a cine picture, and you see that Kennedy was shot in the front of the head, then it's clear, unless they have bullets that do U-turns, that he wasn't shot from behind by Lee Harvey Oswald or anyone else. And during this trip to the United States, when I was filming at various spots in Washington, filmed outside the FBI, filmed at the point where Martin Luther King made his fantastic I Have a Dream speech, and various other points. It all comes back, what I remember from when I was, 11, watching on a black and white television, a not very big one either, the unfolding happenings in the United States. The assassination of Kennedy, I remember that. Obviously, you remember it because of the fantastic amount of coverage it got, and why wouldn't it? Of course it would. But I also remember it because when they announced that Kennedy had been shot in a news flash, they then went back to the programming and then came back and announced that he died. And the BBC put someone playing sad, funereal-like piano music on for much of the rest of the evening, and it was clear even then to an 11-year-old looking at it that something went right here, and of course Edgar Hoover, the long time head of the FBI, who was a psychopath, was one of the leading operatives in a series of assassinations in the 60s, where they felt so confident about their control and that they could get away with it, that they killed a president, went on to kill a great civil rights leader, Martin Luther King. The death of Malcolm X, another very vocal proponent of challenging the system and the injustices of the system. His death has been very much questioned, and a FBI connection to it suggested. Then there was Bobby Kennedy, the president's brother, who was running to become president, who was assassinated at the Ambassador's Hotel in, the city I'm in now, Los Angeles. And when you look at that story, it's supposed to have been done by a guy called Sirhan, who was so clearly under mind control. And when you look at the evidence, and I've gone into it in some of the books in detail, Sirhan, who's still in jail for killing Bobby Kennedy when he didn't. The real killer was a security guard hired just for that night called Eugene Caesar. And Sirhan is still in jail for killing someone he didn't kill. And so that 60s period of the Kennedy assassination, Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, Malcolm X, it really brought home, in a absolutely unsubtle way, because of the confidence they had at that time, that you can take out people that are a problem to you, and you'll face no consequences, which of course is what happened with J. Edgar Hoover.